Yo, what's checking, everybody? Welcome to the Orange Bloods Recruiting Hour. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. Do us an incredible solid. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Get notifications. We do appreciate it. Every one of those things helps the channel in its own special way. Plus, every time a person subscribes to the channel, an angel gets its wings. Speaking of angels, the Specs chat full of angels.
Every time. The
Specs chat full of angels. Guys, get your questions in. We're going to talk to Adam Gorney in about 15 minutes from Rivals.com. We're officially a week away from the second National Signing Day. Ooh, it'll be fun. We'll talk with him about the bowl games that just took place, the final set of rankings. There's a lot of stuff to get into. Also, get your questions in, and we'll get them to Adam, and we'll answer your questions. Super chats, jump right to the front of the pack. Chad, one of the things I wanted to get started today with is just the idea of Texas momentum. It's a funny conversation to see Texas fans talk about in-state. Is it important? And I almost want to just pull everybody back and make sure that everybody understands things are really good right now in recruiting, and that the Longhorns, what we're talking about when we get into the weeds sometimes are the wealthiest of wealthy people's problems.
Yeah.
This is a program right now that, in terms of just raw elite level talent, we mentioned this last week. There's really four schools that have separated a little bit from the rest of the pack, just a little bit. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and Texas. And nobody is, Georgia's kind of freaky, because if you ignore like the consensus and you just, every player that's ever been rated as a super blue chip, which is like national top 70, that's half of Georgia's roster.
Yeah.
So
they're kind of good, right? There's talent in Athens.
It's really ridiculous to think about how much talent they really have, where one out of every two players on the roster was once a national top 50, 70 kid at a minimum. But
yeah,
we look at the consensus guys. Ohio State literally is ahead of them by two. And by consensus, I mean players on any roster that were either rated in the top tiers of multiple services, or in the case of transfers, guys that would have been in the top 25 of at least two of the major services. So you got to be good, really good to get into those lists. Alabama and Texas right behind Ohio State and Georgia. And Sarkisian hasn't even had 4 full years of full recruiting cycles to elevate that number. So someone in the chat very early on, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. And damn it, I did the damn thing, Chad, where here it is. Yeah. Too broke. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. Give us some good news.
There you go.
I mean, the good news is that we are discussing wealthy people problems.
Yes.
You could be watching a recruiting hour right now centered around some broke-ass programs. They're everywhere. They're like, can I just get one rib? And they don't have $100 in their pocket. You have to understand, even if I get annoying at times, we're talking about the elevation from great to elite of the elite. And Texas is really on the cusp of that. And oh, by the way, they won the last Big 12 that they'll ever play in. Oh, by the way, they just played in the playoff. In general, when you combine national with in-state, I mean, Texas is really, really healthy. And I wonder, Chad, if when we talk about where the title of the video is, the recruiting momentum, is this it? And there's a part of me that thinks that it might actually be the national recruits where we see this momentum first, where Texas can be a little wonky no matter what, but we already know kids from California like Texas. We all know that this staff can recruit in Arizona and Florida and Louisiana, and Missouri. They go places, they get guys. And I wonder where Sark was already getting these players and the benefit of the doubt before they started winning. I wonder if when we look at the 2025 recruiting class, if you're wondering where the real momentum is, it might take a second. It might be May or June before we really know. But I just have a sense that Texas is going to get involved with a lot of national kids like they did a year ago. And we'll see. Is this the thing where instead of I really like Texas, I might visit, do you suddenly jump into I'm definitely visiting, put me on that list with Georgia, and we're taking that visit. And now you're in a lot of top twos and top threes. And, again, we want to talk about if the goal is a number one recruiting class in the country for Texas, they got to get 2 or 3 more just super badasses. That's it. That's how far away. They're close. The next step is just a few more guys. And I wonder, we might be saying in May and June that this is the momentum, and it's just going to take a little while to get there because of where we are on the recruiting calendar.
We haven't even had a month since the championship game. That hasn't happened yet. We're not quite to that point. And one of the things I keep thinking about, Catch, in regards to what you're talking about, how long it might take, the feeling of it. Think about the logo situation. Those 4 logos got shown to everybody over and over again through the bowl cycle. And I kept thinking to myself, that's the free advertising right there, especially for Washington and Texas, who haven't been in that playoff regularly. Obviously, a school like Michigan has been used to it a little bit, and clearly Bama has been on that billboard, shall we say. So that's an interesting idea that it would go national first, because then it could just sort of reverse itself where when the big national kids start paying attention, the kids in Texas could as well. For the chatter looking for good news, maybe this is the way to say it, Catch. The news is good. It could be even better.
Yeah, that is the thing that I keep stressing. It's like, don't get pissy because we're talking about ways that Texas can improve. I mean, Texas is it's like being in the clouds. And it's like, well, you guys can still go to outer space.
Yeah.
And that's really the discussion. I tell you, one of the things I want to ask Adam when he joins us in about 7 minutes. And again, if you're just joining in here to the Orange Bloods Recruiting Hour live, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I'm watching you guys. Someone subscribe. Do it right now.
Come on.
Adam Gorney is going to join us in like 5 minutes. And I wonder from his perspective, what's the number one thing that Texas has going for it right now? If you had to select one thing from a recruiting standpoint, is it the portal? Is it out of state? Is it specific inside the state? Is it Texas? Like I'm curious what a national. Adam Gorney lives on the West Coast. I think he's in LA.
Yeah.
So he's not inside the belly of the beast. He is as neutral and able to observe from a national platform the exact thing that we're talking about. It probably be the first question I ask him. Let's just get right to it. It's like, Adam, if you had to say there's one thing where Texas is the envy of everybody across the country, what are they doing where the envy exists? What's A&M jealous of? If anything at all. But I'm the other thing is I'm still trying to really wrap my head around in-state guys. I wonder if Texas had set up 2 junior days instead of 1. Would they have, the thing about having one weekend is that there are a lot of guys that made plans in advance or would love to come. The weather was crappy on the weekend that Texas had their junior day. I mean, it was like 18 degrees. Sukumel's like, I'm going to go out there in the afternoon. Oof. I am not going out there at 8 o'clock in the morning to take some photos. I can get those photos at noon.
Yeah. At the moment,
Jason?
Yeah.
If it
I
was
remember
65, I'd have your ass out there at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. When he complained about the weather, I remember checking my phone, and where I was, it was like 25 or something like that. I was like, yeah, it is cold out there.
Yeah.
No
Fair. Touche.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'd had 2 weekends. Texas A&M did. Some schools, I think the one thing that, if I was going to nitpick Texas anything, somebody asked this earlier. Catch, you're now in charge of the recruiting, whatever. I'm in charge of Texas.
Okay.
What would I do? I think I might do a few more recruiting events, but to be fair to this staff, like they did, their season went longer. I mean, spring football's coming up. Yes, they'll get some time off in July, but I kind of understand if in the first few weeks of January, a little bit of a woo-saw. I mean, it's not even like they had Christmas. I mean, so I get it. But if it were me, I think Texas could have used another junior day so that you could have spread out the options for guys. By the way, let me just, I'm a little nervous. Not really nervous. Okay. It was one of those. Just wanted to make sure I sent Adam Gorney the link. I should have trusted myself, but
it is one of those things. There's a clock on the one side of your head, and the other side of your head is like, I don't see his face. I don't see his face. I don't see his face.
Once you've forgotten to send someone a link just once, for like the next 500 guests, you're like, wait, I did do that, right?
Yeah.
I might do a few more events. I know that one of the things, Chad, for them Texas staff, the Sark staff in year one of the things that kind of blew their mind was that in the summer and in the spring, the recruiting never turned off. That at Alabama, they had fewer events and guys would just show up. When you recruit at Texas, you got guys that you have Micah Hudson, who kind of uninvited drove down to Texas for an unofficial visit. And it wasn't the perfect weekend for them. For whatever reason, they were like, hey, Micah, we'll give you the full tour on your official visit. And like, we'll have it better set up and we can give you more attention. And, he wanted to go watch practice. And for whatever reason, they didn't want a lot of company that day at practice. And, that happens all the time at Texas. And I had heard that there were guys on the staff that the one thing that really blew their minds was like, man, I'm at the football facility every freaking weekend in the summer. And that is not the way it goes down at most schools. So it could be that they think later on in the process that they'll be working so much that it'll, they're saving themselves a little bit. Like, I don't know. If we get Sark on signing day, it's a good question to ask. Like, hey, can you guys talk about the plan and how you see it? And is there a reason, like a real reason, why you guys only have one junior day in January instead of 2 or 3? I'm curious what it is, but one of the things I think I notice sometimes about Texas and recruiting, and we've got Adam Gorney, so I'll go to him in just a second. I'll just finish this thought. If you go back and look at Oklahoma or Texas A&M, or even LSU. But I'm really thinking about Oklahoma and A&M and maybe even Oklahoma more than anybody. If you go back and you look at some of these guys today and you look at the number of visits that have already been taken to one place or another, man, it seems like Oklahoma's got something going on every weekend. And thus, they didn't get a guy like Caden Durham. He ends up going to LSU. But they had that kid on campus like a half dozen times. And if you're steadily doing that with super blue chip level prospects, like you're going to hit some. Mm-hmm. And I do notice that Oklahoma just piles up. There was another kid, I can't think of the name, but there was one kid in particular, Nigel Smith. It's like that kid went to Oklahoma like 8 times. And if you're Oklahoma, man, that's all you can do is to just keep getting these guys on campus. I don't know that Texas makes an effort to quite get guys on campus that many times. Joining us right now He is the head recruiting honcho over at Rivals.com. He's done with 2024 rankings. They're done. He's good. He's good. He can talk about them, but like he never has to change anything with those kids ever again. And oh, by the way, the 2025 cycle is already in full swing, and we haven't put to bed the 2024 cycle. Is so strange. Adam Gorney, welcome to the show. Chad, let's give him a volleyball clap.
Volleyball clap. Well done, Adam. Nice
could
job.
be on
Nice job.
Ireland right now.
Looking good in the hat. Black, very slimming. Looking like Johnny Cash. Well done.
Thank you. I need it.
Yeah.
Adam, let's just start here. You guys just finished up 2024 rankings last week. Where's your head right now as the head of recruiting at Rivals.com and like ultimately responsible for so many things that we do? Now that with signing day 7 days away and the rankings done, but all of this other stuff in the middle, what's most on your mind?
Yeah, there used to be a time catch maybe 5-10 years ago where there'd be like a 3-week window of just like pause between classes. 7-on-7s wouldn't have started yet. Camps wouldn't have started, but now it all overlaps.
Yep.
So now it's just the next hellstorm that we have to engage in, which is 2025 rankings start at the end of February. So that takes a few weeks of collection, and this is going to be one of the most important ones to start the cycle, really to get a full class together. It's a lot of tape watching. There's already been a few 7-on-7s that we've been to. Camps are coming up. I'll be at Pylon LA this weekend, which is the same weekend as Battle Vegas. So there's just a lot going on. The weird thing is, and I have to admit, maybe you feel the same way. Once the 2024 kids are done, there's like this bandwidth issue in your brain. You sort of forget the storylines and forget some of that stuff and move on to 2025. You're so focused on that new group that a lot of that goes by the wayside. That has to stop for me though, because of transfer portal. I talked to a lot of kids at Under Armour about this, and maybe some of them didn't get what I was asking. Maybe I didn't ask it the right way, but like a third of them will be in the portal within 2 years. Is it weird to kind of feel that way? Like, oh no, I've made the best decision for myself. I've made the best decision for my life. I've thought about this for 3 years, and in 6 months that will change. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting time to be in recruiting. It's fun. It's definitely exciting, but it's a lot busier than it used to be.
Adam, do you really walk up to those kids and tell them they're probably going to be in the portal? Isn't that like me? Like for about 3 years, I would go to weddings and I would tell someone, hey, you know, they say half of all marriages fail, but I know yours is going to be the other one.
Exactly like that, Chad.
And
but you
and
know
they would
what?
always look at me like, God, you're a dick. Get
The
out of
stat
here.
is the stat. He can't help it that that's the stat.
I do that after about 6 T&Ts at weddings. That's what I do. So.
Exactly. I drink too much and I say that to the bride, and I get the look every time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Adam, I wanted to ask you about state of Texas stuff specifically. We've been talking about like in-state stuff and what's been going on. For a Texas fan that's watching what's happening and they don't know exactly what it's going to be like in the SEC, we'll find out what that first sequence is. I guess the question is this: if Texas at one point was running the state, and the Longhorns and Aggies like to go back and forth about who's running the state, for you, is anybody ever going to run the state again? Or do you think the Texas talent is going to be spread out, kind of like what we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think if Texas wins the SEC championship and wins a national championship again, I think they could potentially run the state. But considering that NIL plays such a huge factor in recruiting now, the number one player in the state is going to Texas Tech. You know, 4 of the top 5 are not going to Texas. Some of that has to do with NIL. Some of that has to do with Georgia recruiting the state better. You know, I think a lot of kids, and the impression I get is that a lot of kids are confident Texas will do well in the SEC, but how well, and do I want to play there, or do I? If I could be from Texas and play in the SEC, I could play at Texas. But if Georgia's doing better, or if Alabama's doing better, I can play there too now and come back to Texas and play. So I think there are positives and negatives about joining the SEC. I think it's going to be certainly interesting to see how it all plays out. But I tend to think that it doesn't help or hurt recruiting unless Texas wins a national championship or falls off the cliff, which no one expects them to. So I think there's still like a lot of nuance and gray areas there.
Adam, I told myself like 10 minutes ago that I was going to ask this question. So I'm just going to get it out of the way so I can start thinking of new questions. We were talking about some people were like, start with something positive. And I was like, start with something positive. Like, you're the Texas Longhorns. You've accumulated from a talent standpoint. You're up here with just behind Georgia and Ohio State. And so we were talking about positives. And I wondered from your perspective, right? You've got the portal, you've got out-of-state recruiting, you got in-state recruiting, you've got potentially specific recruiting in specific states. If I were to say, what is the single best thing that Texas is doing right now in terms of accumulating talent in recruiting, whatever the case may be, is there an obvious answer? Is there one thing, two thing? Like, what comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I think there are a few certain things that they're really doing. One, beating SEC teams for Colin Simmons was huge, but accumulating talent at the skill positions and at defensive back has been huge for them, I think, in recent recruiting classes. And it sticks out a ton in 2024. Ryan Wingo is one of the best players in the country. We could talk about his ranking if you want to. I'm fine with that. Parker Livingstone is a guy who's probably going to catch a lot of balls. Aaron Butler is kind of Xavier Worthy-ish, an exciting guy that can make things happen. But then just look at the running back room over the last few years. I mean, it's been pretty amazing from Bijan down. Now, Cedric Baxter is going to be sort of a superstar, and then they're bringing in two really good ones with different skill sets, two 200-pound guys that can bang it around a little bit. Then they're in, maybe number one for Jordan Davison, the 5-star in 2025. So Sark is doing a good job pretty much across the board, getting a lot of people that fit his style of offense, loading up with elite offensive linemen, putting it all together and staying, well within that range of a shot at the college football playoff every year.
Adam, you mentioned Wingo, so I'll go ahead and get your thoughts on it. We talked to one of your rivals' brothers the other day about Wingo and the rankings and all of that. So break it down for us a little bit. Your thoughts on Wingo and the fact that he ended up losing that all-important 5th star at the finish line.
Yeah, first I'll say that there's zero conspiracy theory here. So it's not like we have some sort of agenda or vendetta. Look, we think the wide receiver class in 2024 was the best position by far. We reflected that by having the number 1, 4, 7, and 9 player, all wide receivers. We have 5 stars there. We saw Ryan Wingo a bunch over the years. We think he's a very talented player. He ended up as a top 50 player in the country. But after again seeing all of these guys, almost all of them, at the All-Star games over the last 2 weeks at Under Armour and then at the All-American Bowl, we just felt that he was far too high. So he just didn't make the plays, doesn't have that wow athleticism factor that other receivers in the class have. Now, that's not to say he's horrible. He sucks. He should never play college football and should pick up another sport. He's a top 50 player in the country. We still project him as a 2nd-round draft pick. We still think he's going to have a tremendous career at Texas. But, there could only be so many 5 stars in a class. We felt pretty comfortable with the ones we had ahead of him.
I don't think it's the Wingo thing that kind of drives Texas fans crazy. I think it's the Kobe Black, who is tied with a bunch of guys. Someone had to be, I tried to explain to people that being ranked 32 is the same this year as being ranked like 62, and that's the difference between a normal year. But I want to explain it from your perspective for a Texas fan that says Kobe Black was number 32 and you guys always ranked number 32 as a 5-star. Why this year? Because it feels like you guys hate Texas and changed your rules so that Kobe Black won't be a 5-star.
I definitely can go through the years, and Ketch, you're our rivals historian on this stuff. We try to get to 32. Okay. So some years we have 34, some years we have 31s. This year was a 31. And now that I don't have to talk to these kids much until they go to the portal, and I'll remind them a third of them will, I'll say this. This is not one of the greatest classes in Rivals history. We felt that we stretched it to get to 31. We weren't crazy about Aaron Noland finishing as a 5-star. I don't like guys that have huge junior years and then average senior years. Mike Matthews was sort of in the discussion. Does he have really that playmaking ability? We think he's a very good player, but is he going to go to the combine and run like 4.41? I don't know. Miles Graham was one that we really tossed around. Believe it or not, DJ Lagway was still in the discussions for 5-star. Like, okay, so you put up huge numbers at Willis, Texas, in rural Texas. That's nice. But when you come to a national event, you're not blowing us away. So, that was a consideration as well. So we try to stretch it as far as we can. If we reflected in a way by only having 31 5-stars, we didn't think, without writing it, we didn't think this class was as strong as others. That was the reflection. I can completely see why Texas fans would be pissed off at us for not making Kobe Black a 5-star. But that is also a gamble. Like, we love Eddie Pierre-Louis. He's going to Oklahoma. If we made him 32, Oklahoma fans would hate us. Sammy Brown hates us for not making him a 5-star. Jeremiah McClellan hates us at number 35. So you can never make anybody happy. The first guy out of 5-star contention. And it really is a gamble, because down the road, a lot of people do this and a lot of people pat themselves on the back for it. We try to just let our work do the talking. But they will look at the NFL draft and say, okay, you got 14 out of 32 right. Well, now we might be able to get 17 out of 31 right. We don't want, the gamble is really making someone a 5-star, not making them a 5-star. I mean, the odds are that a lot of these guys won't end up being first-round draft picks. So we sort of wanted to reflect that the class, we felt at the top it was very good. It didn't have that depth that we usually have to get to 32 to reflect, like everyone thinks, the first round in the NFL draft.
So there you go, Texas fans. And Adam, no truth to the rumor that Rivals is devising a new logo with an upside-down Longhorn inside of it.
Only on our BYU site will we do something like that.
Yeah. Well played. Well played. I thought the guy with the cowboy hat with it upside down, that was classy looking with the blue. I wouldn't do it, but it looked all right for him. Okay, so right as we were getting started, Adam, even before we got started, this chat popped up from Rodolfo. Update on Dakorien Moore. It's obviously a name Texas fans are interested in. Hell, everybody's interested in this dude. Big-time receiver out of Duncanville. So as of right now, as you think about Dakorien Moore, the commit to LSU, how strong do you feel like it is, and what would you tell a Texas fan about Moore?
Yeah, talk to me in 11 months and 2 weeks when recruiting actually starts kicking up again and everything that the kid said gets thrown out of the window. So I'll say this. I think he's locked in with LSU for now. I think that he's very happy there. I think he loves having Bryce Underwood in the class. I think he sees himself, Harlem Berry, and Bryce Underwood as this like holy trinity of offense, very much like LSU had with Burrow and Jamar Chase and those guys. I'm sure that's being pumped to him too. But I will say this, as things get closer, Texas is not going to back off here. His teammate and close friend at Duncanville, Colin Simmons, is going to Texas. Of course, Caden Durham is going to LSU, but Texas isn't going to back off here. So if Bryce Underwood starts looking at Michigan again, if he looks at Ohio State, there's a whole lot of things that can still happen here. But Dakorien Moore, I think, has sort of solidified himself, and please check back with me after the next rankings, as the number one receiver now in the 2025 class, now that Ryan Williams has reclassified. Ryan Williams is phenomenal. I mean, he was within, we were probably not going to move Jeremiah Smith off the number one receiver line in the 2024 class, just because over the years he has been so good. But Ryan Williams is very much in that discussion. I just don't see who pushes Dakorien Moore in 2025. Winnie Watkins is very good, but I don't see him being number one. Caleb Cunningham, Jamie French, Dallas Wilson, Talon Taylor, we kind of start fading away there. So I think Dakorien Moore is going to be a very solid number one receiver. He is, of the receivers that I've seen in recent years, makes impossible catches look easy. Like, he has one hand grabs gets both feet in, palms it down onto the sideline, and does it over and over again. And so he has a lot of playmaking ability and a lot of athleticism, and he really wants to be good, could take the top off of it. So I think right now he's pretty much locked in with LSU. I do think that Texas will not give up until the final second, and I do think Colin Simmons will have a say in it.
Adam, I'm curious, 2025 class, if we look at guys in the state of Texas, I know rankings are a month away, but you'll start diving into them in 2 weeks. And it's something that's always kind of ever going at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you have any of the non-obvious guys, right? So for those that don't know, there are 4 or 5 stars, I think, from the state of Texas right now. So you've got Fasusi, Devin Sanchez, Dakorien Moore, and
Jonah Williams.
Thank you. Who may be number 1. I love that kid.
Yeah.
Of the non-5 stars at this point, any are you growing crushes on guys from the state of Texas? If I say, give me some buzzword names of recruits in 2025, who's on the tip of your tongue right now besides kind of the obvious guys?
Yeah, so I think there are a few, and mainly because we haven't seen a ton of them yet in person. I think DJ Sanders at Belleville is going to be one that we look at, a 6'3", 290-pound defensive tackle. The one that I'm really interested in is Lamont Rogers. The kid just doesn't talk to anybody, so I've actually started to DM with him, which is weirdly excited me, and I shouldn't be this excited about it, but I am. But so I've opened the lines of communication there. He's a 6'8", 305-pound offensive tackle, which just reeks of 5-star. Just make him a 5-star and hope he's good down the line, because NFL teams will fall in love with him. But it's actually a very loaded class in Texas this year. I think Ty Haywood is another one, an offensive lineman that we're going to look at way down the line. We'll see. Taz Williams is interesting. Elijah Barnes is interesting out of Dallas. It goes pretty deep in Texas. It's a very, very good class. But I think those would be the guys right at the cusp of, if we see them and really like them, they're going to move up fast.
Adam, maybe don't mention that portal stat to Lamont Rogers. He might keep communicating with you. I'm just
I know, yeah.
By the way, Chad, volleyball clap, because he got some communication going with Lamont Rogers.
Good. That's good. Because because the quiet ones are the quiet ones. You never know what it's going to be. So you may have the secret sauce, whatever.
By any means necessary. Hey, Adam, last question from me. Portal. Now, other than it's so late in the calendar that you feel like the Michigan kids are just going to stay where they are. And who knows, maybe in the spring we'll see something different. Your final thoughts on, if we're saying we're putting the portal to bed, and because signing day is next week, and then on to 2025, we really go. How would you wrap up your thoughts on everything that kind of transpired? I think Texas feels really good about what they've done in the portal. It feels like them and a few others have stood out. Your final piece on transfer 2024 at this point.
Yeah, and it really is, such an important part of our recruiting class now. That's why we have high school rankings, transfer rankings, and then a comprehensive ranking. We've finally come around to that, and I'm happy we did. It's just madness. I mean, you look at Caleb Downs, as Alabama's leading tackler last year, is now going to be at Ohio State, along with the 5-star quarterback that they just signed, who transferred to Ohio State, along with Ole Miss's star running back. I mean, that just changes Ohio State immediately. Caden Proctor goes from Alabama to Iowa and says that Iowa had been talking to him and kind of praising him mid-season. So I just wrote about this for tomorrow, so it's kind of top of mind. Florida State, and Tennessee are getting whacked for stuff that they did, whether it was allegedly driving a recruit to a collective meeting or God knows what was going on at Tennessee. I know, the bar is set at cash and McDonald's bags, so anything under that is a misdemeanor compared to what they've been doing. But the portal has changed a lot, but it hasn't changed the teams that are good. The good players still want to play with the good teams, It's not like, Arizona State has tried to go portal to change their roster quickly. Colorado, the same. Louisville went to the ACC championship, but still went portal heavy. So everybody has a different philosophy on it. It's actually, Kenny, I think I said this once before, but I was talking to Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham on signing day, and he was like, yeah, what the portal is basically allowed is that the signing day is not nearly as important now, because the second they sign, every other college just starts trying to recruit them for the portal again. So it's really changed just like what it means to sign to a school, not only recruiting your own roster, but making sure that people are happy there. There are definitely stories about Alabama trying to get Drake May after last year, even though he was a first-round draft pick. It's really changed everything in our job. And in terms of those kinds of things, I'm sure it's going to continue to be this way, and it makes things a whole lot more interesting.
Adam, I imagine a hardcore Alabama or Georgia fan watching the show as you say, God knows what's going on in Tennessee, and they're just like, hallelujah, brother. They're nuts. I don't know what yeah, it's exactly. That's what they're thinking, I'm sure. So last one from me. I think the opposite of most college football fans. As I get older, I want more of signing day stuff with hats, boxes, bags, balloons, movies. I want jazz hands, Adam. Are we getting any jazz hands next Wednesday? Is there any big 24 moment coming as we close it out where it's going to be, hey, that badass D tackle is going to let us know? Do we have any of those left for next week?
Well, knowing Terry Bussey, I don't think so. He's not that type of kid that's going to do that. I think he's going to either announce that he's staying at A&M or flipping to Georgia or LSU. And so I think that's it. I think Gatlin Bear is a nice Mormon kid from Burley, Idaho, who's planning a 2-year mission after high school. So I suspect that won't happen. And that is all for the Rivals 250. Other than that, everyone else is signed except Amari Williams, who looks like he's going to end up at Florida State. So all of that stuff is December now. February is for the stragglers, and there aren't many even of those left. All
right, Bussy and a guy going on a Mormon mission. Just gotta, all right, cross my fingers, Catch.
Hey, Adam, real quick, like 5 seconds, because I don't want to hold you any longer. We appreciate the time. Your projection on Bussy coming out of this past weekend.
Yeah, he's dealing with LSU now. My suspicion is that he sticks with Texas A&M. I talked to a couple Georgia sources who were happy with how the visit went, but unsure that he would flip there. So I don't know. He's from a small town in Texas. He's gotten to know that A&M staff a little bit more than these other places. He took these late visits to maybe look around a little bit, but like his support system is in Timpson. I think he stays.
Chad's so happy I snuck that last question in. Makes you happy, right?
Yeah, that does make me happy. It'll really make me happy if he does that with some jazz hands. Give me something, Terry.
You want the
Come on, Terry.
Drake Kirkpatrick up that announcement and treat it like the once in a lifetime. Well, no, because as Adams explained to us, 31% chance, Terry, that you're going to be talking to Adam Gorney in 24 less months, and we're going to do it all over again. It's fun. It's the portal, and that number may climb from the 30s, even higher. It may turn out to be like divorce, and then we'll all really be assholes at that point. We'll just flip a coin, son. Heads or tails, it's happening. Adam, man, really appreciate it, as always. Have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week.
See you guys.
You got it. Adam Gorney from Rivals.com.
That's fantastic. I didn't think anybody else did that kind of stuff. That is awesome. I love the idea that he's getting done with a cycle of 5 stars and be like, hey, I'm not going to lose your number. You know what the portal numbers are.
Well, I love my favorite part of it was it wasn't the question. He was like, maybe I'm just not asking the question right.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's
but fantastic. He's not wrong. It is very much You're not wrong, Donnie. You're just an asshole.
An asshole.
There's a little bit of that because the data is the data. It's 3 out of every 10 kids at one of those All-America Bowls will be in the portal in less than 24 months. And, what stood out to you the most from that conversation before we wrap things up?
Well, I thought the portal comments were definitely interesting, and it is that new era. It is a new era of the portal. Now, it is also because of Nick Saban's situation to where I'm about to go, but when he reminds you that Downs is going to Ohio State and that quarterback ended up there, those two are wild. The Ole Miss kid might end up there anyway, right? But the Alabama ingredients are unique, but it just reminds us that big dogs, big time. Not long ago, a Biletnikoff winner jumped in the portal, and that made no sense to my college football fan brain. Still doesn't. It still makes no sense. You can't win a big award and have eligibility and go to another school. That doesn't make any sense. More and more guys do that. So that definitely jumps out to me. But, overall, I'm really interested in just kind of this discussion we've been having the last few days. Where does the state of Texas go over the next couple of cycles? Where does the power truly lie? And that answer was interesting from Adam. I said, how does Texas run the state again? And he went right to the top. He said, if they win the SEC and a natty. And I'm like, well, okay.
The bar is not too high.
Yeah, right. So no big deal, right? Just basic stuff. That definitely stood out to me. Now, before we wrap up, Catch, because I'm assuming we're about to wrap up, I do need to let you know that I am a bit crushed. I'm a bit hurt. I feel like that I'm your dog. You bought me a new toy, and then we never went out to play with it. You told me, the crap bag, that there's a recruit out there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Named Quanell X Farrakhan Jr., and we've had 2 recruiting shows, and we haven't talked about him yet. So just for a moment, I want to make sure people understand this, that there is a 4-star talent. So we're not talking about a scrub here. Catch, give me a quick, the star-wise for you. Is he super blue chip or just outside of that area?
I'm curious to see how he gets evaluated. There are a lot of he's getting recruited by a lot of big boys nationally. So the national guys love him. I got to be honest, I haven't watched yet a lot of his junior film. I remember watching his sophomore film and kind of watching him during the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was okay. I got him rated as a 4. I think maybe a high 3-star, low 4-star. I can't even remember. He's kind of
okay
for me in the middle, but that's going into his junior season. I think, he visited Texas last year in maybe January. I'd have to go look it up, but I know he visited Texas last year. And I can tell you that when his name popped up like on the visit list,
mm-hmm.
They're just people who can't contain themselves.
Well, yeah.
There is a reaction among people in the fan bases everywhere that when they hear that name, they're like, oh, no, anything but that. And it really jumped out to me because A&M scheduled to have him on campus on Saturday.
Yes.
And, it's a lot. I can just tell you, like in the history of covering Texas, the state of Texas in recruiting for the last 30 years, we've never had a Farrakhan. Never had it.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm reading correctly, you mentioned some big names are interested. He does not currently have an offer from Texas, correct?
Correct.
But he does have offers from Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Tennessee, and A&M, just to name a group.
No, he's a national recruit.
So it's big stuff. And to me, Catch, there's an extra level to this. So people may remember this story about the kid out of Iowa, Noah Kanega. The name is spelled Knigga. It got a lot of talk. Robert Griffin III does the interview. People are like, wait, is that how you pronounce it? No, it's not. It's with that short E sound. And everybody has kind of moved. You just kind of move on. That's just about a pronunciation. This kid's name is Quanell X Farrakhan Jr. And it's not like oh no, that's not what you're thinking. His dad's a painter. Nope, that's not it. His dad is Quanell X, the activist in Houston, and at one point, maybe still was head of the new Black Panther Party in Houston.
He's a neighbor of mine now because he's in the Woodlands.
He attended a Nation of Islam meeting back in the late 80s, early 90s, and converted to the Nation of Islam and became a spokesperson for the Nation of Islam. There's stories you could look up. When I said his name to my wife, a Houston area girl, she knew exactly who I was talking about. Oh, the activist guy in Houston. Yes, she knew it like that. But you're right. The reaction to this goes well beyond the normal, what does your dad do for a living discussion that might happen in a locker room. It's just a little more complex. It's like if a president's kids, senators' kids, a famous actors' kids, there's just all kinds of, like if Joe Rogan's kids, for some reason he just popped in my head. If Joe Rogan's kids go to school somewhere, they probably deal with different stuff. Back in the day, Rush Limbaugh's kids or Howard Stern's kids or whatever. So I'm interested to watch how this progresses. Is the level of talent so great that these schools would be like, we don't care. We don't care about any of that. Well, we'll take that signature no matter what.
And look, man, it's a kid. Like my whole thing is like, it's not his dad. It's not anything like it's a kid. It's a high school kid. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of get icky talking about it because it's like, let this young man like try to find a college without a hailstorm of rabble. Mm-hmm. And it's there, man. I can remember last year having to delete posts.
I bet
there were people who were like, don't even let this kid cross the city lines. And it's like, whoa. Nah, let's not. Can we not? But if you go onto social media, like people have reactions. I have to say it's one of the more unique recruitments I will ever have. And I don't know if Texas is going to offer or not. They haven't. And there's a lot of receivers in state. So maybe they're just not. I don't know. I quite honestly, I've never bothered to ask, like, hey, what's going on with Quanell X Jr.? Like, is that going to be a guy that you guys go after? It doesn't seem like it, but everywhere he goes, there's a little bit of a reaction like that. And I can't ever think of anybody else quite like it.
No, I can't either. And I wonder if from a PR standpoint, obviously the kid's name is the kid's name and he can present it however he wants. I wonder from a PR standpoint, Catch, do you just go Quanell X Jr. and stop there and don't take the name Farrakhan out of it in terms of the way you broadcast the kid? Because
I don't personally feel that way, and let that kid. If that's his name.
Yeah, right.
And look, we have his name in the Rivals.com database. If he doesn't want that as his name, if he wanted to shorten it, we could shorten it. He doesn't appear to want to, and I don't think, I never even occurred to me like maybe he should change his name, except we do live in a world where sometimes people will do things like that. Right. I don't have it in me to react negatively to something like that. For me, it's like, what an interesting footnote. And, I think to myself, God, I wonder if dad comes to the games. I think I'd like to sit in the box and just observe and maybe interact a little bit out of curiosity, because I find interesting people interesting. But then again, like activist, that doesn't scare me, right?
Right.
Activist, though, is a word that for some people,
I mean, it's just again, it depends on it's going to depend on the kind of the perspective that people are using, and it's just the thing I wonder about is nowadays, man, social media, everything that can happen, every reaction, nothing can happen, Catch, without a reaction. right? It just doesn't exist. You can't announce anything on social media without an immediate reaction happening. Blessed to get an offer from the University of Texas. Somewhere in those first 3 comments, there's a Sooner fan going, he'll flame out like they all do. Like, it just happens. So knowing that fans aren't sensitive anymore and knowing that they step across lines all the time, I just wonder how. I wonder how rival fan bases are going to deal with it. How do coaches talk about a guy like that? Literally somebody in the chat typed the words "sins of the father," and that's unfair in some ways, but in others, like who your father is does matter. Who your father is matters. What does he do? Who's your mom? What does she do? What has she said? What has she stood for in the past? Does that somehow reflect on the kid? It kinda. I mean, it sort of does, but you hope you can separate those things. It's tough. It is really tough.
The thing that you can't because like for me, right? Like I'd love to live in a world where like it's just not a big deal, and like that kid can go about his life. And by the way, my dogs, I swear to God,
your dogs have been after it today.
It's like 30. So my wife's not here. Someone earlier was like, "Don't put your wife on blast." Mm-hmm. My lovely wife is often the one that's able to keep the dogs under control. Not that the one random tickles me to death. I real quick, Jay, $20 super chat, and then he says,
"Thank you, Jay.
Choose one to be on the team," and I don't know what that means.
Choose one to be on the team, like choose one from the 25 class, the portal, oh God. Oh my God. This is the decision. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can fill this in for the people who don't know. So the Quan LX we just explained, the peanut thing is a kid that was at Lake Travis is a recruitable athlete, pretty good recruitable athlete. And there was a hazing incident, right? With the peanut stuff. He spread peanut dust in the locker room. And
I don't know exactly what is officially on the record. So
yeah,
I would make sure I throw in the word allegedly.
Allegedly, there was something going on. Yes, there you go.
Yes. I mean, if you're asking, Jay, would I choose a guy who did, I mean, there's no, Quanto X hasn't done anything. I don't know. There's nothing negative about that young man to say, whereas the other guy allegedly did something. And look, they may both be awesome kids. I don't know. I
catch, have you seen any of Quan LX's interviews? Have you watched the kid getting interviewed at all?
I have not.
Okay. So the feeling you get when you watch one of the St. Brown kids get interviewed, but what their dad's like, or when you watch the ball guys, the ball kids get interviewed, but what their dad's like. I think Quan LX might be that type of kid. He seems real soft-spoken, real chilled out. Now, the dad, I'm not saying their dad is I
don't even know how much of a relationship he even has with his dad.
And I don't know that either. But in terms of, obviously, with Quan LX, the dad, I just say that in terms of he's obviously he's comfortable speaking, right? He's an activist. This guy goes out and talks. My wife, when I said his name, she's like, anytime there's something going on in the city of Houston and it involves, race relations and things like that, that's a guy that gets out in front of the media and will talk about it. So that's what I mean by that. An outspoken dad, it's got its thing going on. And the kid has a certain kind of mellowness to him. The kid struck me as kind of a mellow, respectful type of kid in the short time just a couple interviews I've watched.
He's probably one of those guys also that probably feels like he has to go extra, right? He can't be nice. He's got to be double nice because everybody's just looking for a reason. There's some built-in confirmation bias amongst everybody who hears that name, and to what levels those biases kick in, it's hard to say. Look, he will be a fascinating case study, right? When he goes through this process, is there ever an issue? Is there ever an issue? If he visits Tennessee, are there ever any issues with teams in the South? And I'm when he becomes a college player, is it ever a thing? Is it ever something that becomes a thing? Or can this guy go to college, no matter how good he is, great, good, okay, a bust, goes, plays it, I don't know, like whatever it may be, does it not become a thing?
And if while he's on whatever team it is, I'm not even going to say a team, while he's on a team, if there is a public display of freedom of speech about a topic and he shows up, with the 3 teammates he shows up with, nobody cares about, but he's there. You know what I mean? Who's going to report? What's going to get reported? It's going to get reported that Quanell was there. The other guy's names may not even get out. I mean, it's not fair.
It's probably like a Fox News headline, right? Like college football player Quanell X Farrakhan Jr. was protesting, 2% milk, but like,
right. Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, you're right. There is that. I'm fascinated to watch the recruitment from afar. I don't think Texas is going to get involved. I think it may have more to do with the fact that I don't know that he's not a guy that in my mind is like a top 10, top 15 prospect in the state. That's kind of, it should either be those kinds of guys or wait till some guy comes in the portal. Because if you're Texas, you should only shop at like Saks Fifth Avenue for your wide receivers.
Right.
And he might be like a Nordstrom's, right? Really, really nice and good and swanky for a lot of people, but maybe not for Texas.
Yeah. I'll be honest.
But it also wouldn't shock me if Texas came in, because ultimately I think coaches don't care. They'll take, if Jeffrey Dahmer's got a 5-star kid, it'll be like, well, we just got to have the serial killer son on the show. He runs a 4-4. We're going to let him go to A&M? If we don't, he's going to A&M. And it's like, or Alabama or Georgia. And
I think we can safely say you found an example that's way more extreme. But yes. Yeah.
That's what I was going for, though. Like,
yeah.
What's the most extreme? Like, hey, Hitler has a great grandson who is a German tight end. And you know how hard tight ends are to find. Like, he's a good kid from a caring family, but like, are you going to have a Hitler with bloodlines?
Well, and here's the other thing.
Yes, they would. Yes, they would. If that kid was 6'6", 245, ran like a 4.5, had soft pillows for hands. Every kid in the country. So it's, I don't even know what to say, Chad. You got me to Hitler.
I did. I didn't mean to get you there. I didn't. I just wanted to talk about this kid's name because it's fascinating to me. And as much as I love the names and the details and all that stuff, there's a part of me that wants that kid in the SEC. And there's another part of me that wants him as far away from the SEC as possible.
That's kind of how I feel, man. Like, one thing I don't want that kid have to go through is going to a Mississippi school in the SEC and his presence being there is a thing, like signs and it's again, like some of it feels very icky. I don't trust the human condition as far as I can toss it. So
they're shaking buses down there for way less. Those fans are shaking buses, throwing rocks. They're doing all kinds of stuff just because you're wearing the logo. Imagine if you're wearing the logo and carrying that last name.
No, I wish that kid nothing but like success, because he carries around like something. He's got something that he has to deal with that most people could never comprehend in a million years. Sure. I've never heard a bad, never heard a bad word about the guy at all. Unlike others that might get brought up. Yeah. This guy's issue is he's got a very recognizable name, and some people have a very strong organic reaction to just hearing the last name. Who knows, man? Maybe one day my kids, like, Ketchum. Whoa, and it's like, that guy was such a jerk on YouTube. I hate him. And it's like, he's got kids. I mean,
Sins of the father.
Sins of the father. All right, man, let's wrap this bad boy up, mainly because it actually has gotten quiet in the house a little bit. Okay. And there's no telling before another Amazon guy is going to show up and all three of my dogs want to eat him.
Fair enough. All right, there it is. Reminder that first off, a big shout out to Specs. They do bring us the chat. Things are set for Specs all the way through 2024 with Orange Bloods Live. We appreciate you, Specs. Here they are to let you know what they've got.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
No doubt. Cheers to it indeed. Maybe you're getting your watch party ready for, Super Bowl 58. Specs can help you out there. Valentine's Day is coming up. That's one you don't want to screw up. They've got a lot of ideas at specsonline.com. If you want like badass cocktails, the romantic cocktail and food pairing ideas for Valentine's Day, they'll help you out with all that stuff. All right. Thanks to Blake the Super.
Can I sneak in one more thing?
Of course.
For those of you Chelsea Football Club fans out there, how'd that taste today? Put a little 4-1 beat down on the Blues. And Chad, I just want to let you know, those things put me in a good mood. I like seeing those bastards put in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool Football Club today put Chelsea in its place.
Nice job, the Reds. Nice job, Liverpool. Well done. Thanks for making Catch happy. Thanks for making Catch, put him in a good mood today.
I just needed to say it out loud,
no problem.
It's not every day that you just beat Chelsea into the ground 4-1. On the day they do, I want to feel good about it.
Hey, people understand. Sometimes you have to process your soccer fan feelings. We certainly understand that. We also have your Outsider show coming up tonight at 9 o'clock. Ty Harrington's going to join us tonight on a What Are You Drinking Wednesday. We're closing in on Texas baseball. He's doing the broadcast there, but he's got good old baseball stories too. We might get a Coach Gus story. There's no telling who, if we get Ty Harrington talking, he may tell a story about everybody. So
once upon a time, there was some thought that Ty Harrington might end up, it's very serendipitous in the timing of how jobs open up. But once upon a time, he was a guy that people used to whisper around could be the head baseball coach at Texas and in a world where all of it. So fascinating guest, always a good guy.
Great guy. God, he's a good dude.
Great guy.
He's a tire changer. That's who he is. Ty Harrington would pull over in a driving rainstorm and help you change that tire. And all you'd need to do is probably meet him twice. That's it. He's that type of dude.
A handshake and a thank you is all that man would ever need.
Awesome.
Watch the Outsiders tonight and do all of us, when you go to the Outsiders and watch them, thumbs up, hit that button, hit that like button, subscribe, and get notifications either now or later on when you're watching the Outsiders.
There you go. Shout out to Blake, the super producer, on his last lap with Orange Bloods Live, doing great work. As always, we're going to try not to cry this week when it comes to Blake, the super producer. We'll get there. We'll get through. Next Monday will be your next recruiting hour. Remember, you got Thursday coming up tomorrow. So Modcast tomorrow at 4 o'clock. If you missed football with friends earlier, Alex and the crew were in Mobile talking about Longhorns in Mobile that are looking good and other guys in Mobile that are looking good in the Senior Bowl. So check all that out. All those shows are there for you to go back and visit if you want to do it. Thank you for supporting Orange Bloods Live. Until Monday afternoon at 4 for the next recruiting hour. That guy is Jeff Ketchum. He's a happy Liverpool fan today. I'm Chad Hastings. I was kind of happy when Adam Gorney said that about Terry Bussey, so you never know. Can't hurt to have positive energy going right now. This is the recruiting hour, and this is Orange Bloods Live.